So there that goes. I guess I'll turn my video on. So hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Reynolds. I am the WAG Rules Coordinator for the NAIGC. I know Andrew already kind of took roll call, but if everyone can just pop their name and the club that you're with in the chat, just so that we have it for future records and everything, just so that I don't forget who all was here. But I just kind of wanted to go through and get a little bit of information from everyone, as well as just kind of introduce you guys to me and the organization a little bit as a whole, and just kind of give you guys some information, as well as talk about some of the rule changes that we're considering and kind of how that might affect your clubs, and so that we can get feedback from all of you as well. So like I said, my name is Amanda Reynolds. A little bit about myself. I started with the NAIGC as an athlete back in 2013. I went to Penn State, was there for 4 years, graduated, and then shortly thereafter joined the NAIGC as part of the as an advisor back probably 4-ish years ago or so. And now I'm part of our operations team, and I'm in charge of, like I said, WAG rules, as well as I'm the head of the trampoline and tumbling group as well. So if you ever have any questions about either of those things, feel free to reach out. I'm sure you guys already know, but your regional representative is Andrew. So a lot of the communications from us will come through him. Make sure that he has all of your updated club information. So your club name, contact information, social media handles, disciplines that you guys offer. If you guys have any membership requirements, like you're only eligible to have like collegiate athletes or people that are in school at your university, things like that, just so that as we try and grow and we're trying to find, or people that come to us saying we're looking for a club, that we can make sure to point them in the right direction as far as clubs that might be available. So I do want to screen share and show you guys some of the resources that we do have available to you. So first off, one of the things kind of talking about information that's kind of more widely available. If you guys don't have access to your the NAIGC registration page as like the leaders of your club, there's a couple ways to do that. Either check with your previous officers, they should be able to give you admin access, or if you can't get a hold of them or they can't give you admin access, if you email info@naigc.org, then we can help get you set up with that as long as you have your account information. So one of the things that when you have admin access that you'll be able to access is this club information page. It is under my team and then my club. And from there, it'll give you information about your club, and you can edit it and type in things like your club name, any like acronyms or like things that may be different, like if you guys like to be called one thing or another, as well as information about what disciplines you guys offer and things like that. So that's something really helpful. This does publicly get shared to our website. There's basically a list that shows all the clubs and the information that they've populated in here. And so again, that'll be helpful for people that are trying to find maybe a club that's in their area and might happen to be you guys. I also wanted to make you guys aware of our women's rules page. So pretty much anything that you could possibly want for the most part is on here. So it's naigc.org/women's-rules. On here, we have lots of drop-down menus with lots of helpful information. The main document here is the rules document. Right now, it's still the 2021-2022 one, but kind of based off this discussion and things internally within the organization, this will be updated internally by the end of September, and we're hoping to publish all of that outwardly by October 1st. We also have our NAIGC WAG named skill guide. So if you weren't aware, you can submit a skill to be named after you, the same as in USAG or FIG. It always takes a really long time to load. I should have loaded this beforehand, but basically we have a separate code of points of these named skills. We currently have 5, and you're eligible to submit skills as you desire. The rules team will just review them and then get back to you guys. And information about that is in our rules policy. And so you can see all of these drop downs. You have a list of all of the requirements for each of the levels. And just if you're ever looking for information about WAG rules, it's a really great place to find it. We also have our rules Instagram that has a lot of helpful information. We post content generally Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So MAG Monday, TNT Tuesday, WAG Wednesday. So for example, this was a couple weeks ago, but if you're looking for level 8 or level 9 for C level skills, this is a list of C skills for bars. And we have lots of different posts like this with both skill values, skill requirements, progression videos, all sorts of things like that. So this is a good resource if you're looking for more help regarding the rules.
Hey, just
yep.
Time check here. Is the meeting open, or are you checking to make sure nobody's waiting to be let in?
It's supposed to tell me if people are waiting to be let in, but I will double check.
I don't know. I just wanted to double check
yes, let me double check just so that I don't. As soon as I screen shared, all the windows went away. So let me unscreen share for a second, but nope, there's no one waiting. We're all good. Anyway, back to this. So like I said, so segueing to social media, naigc.org/social-media. This has pretty much all of our social media accounts. Feel free to follow them either personally or with your club pages, and that way you'll be able to stay up to date with everything. So we have several Facebook pages and Facebook groups that are more specialized, and then the two Instagram pages. We have a YouTube page, TikTok, and Twitter as well. So let me get my thing back. So with all of that being said, I want to transition a little bit more towards the rules information and just get a little bit of feedback from all of you. Feel free if you want to unmute, or if you want to just type things in the chat, that is totally fine as well. So I just kind of want to get a general feel about what levels you guys typically compete and whether you feel like the levels that we've offered in the past meet your team's needs.
Silence will be taken as you like the status quo.
I will say I am in favor of what we've had going on in the past. I think it's worked very well for us, and it's continuing to work well.
Okay. Agree.
I think for us, we're in a pretty similar boat. We have like mainly level 6 through 8. So, I mean, yeah.
Okay. I guess the next question would be, how can we best in general communicate like rules information with you guys? So like I said, we have stuff on our website, on our social media pages. Are those helpful? Have you guys seen those before? And like things like when we make our big policy change, say at the end of September, beginning of October, how do you most see that information? Email, social media, website? What seems to work best for you and your club?
Personally, for gymnastics, for me, or AM gymnastics, it's typically email that we see things.
Okay. And then email. Okay. And then are you guys on the like you're getting the NAIGC announcement emails every month, or are you getting things like sent through your RR? Just making sure that we're getting things to you as efficiently as possible.
Again, personally for me, I get the NIDC emails every month. So
Sounds good. In general, what resources do you find most useful? So like if you've seen our social media page, do you like maybe the posts that talk about the skill requirements or the skill values or progression videos or just kind of whatever we put out? We're just trying to make sure that we're putting out content that is useful to you guys as members and as member clubs. Or you never see our resources and content and now you're going to go look is also an option.
I haven't seen much of the social media yet, but I definitely am interested now and I'm gonna go check it out. So
Okay. I guess kind of as a follow-up, and if you don't have an answer now, that's fine. But as a club, what kind of information about the rules do you feel like you're missing or would like to know more about or think would be useful for posts in the future? That's fine. So with that, I do want to move on and talk about kind of what the NAIGC and the WAG rules team is thinking about level offerings for the 2022-2023 season. Again, I want to state this up front. None of this is finalized at this point. Internally, I will say we do have thoughts and desires and what we plan to do, but that's all still pending board approval. So that'll come towards the end of September. And then information from this will all be taken into account before that presentation. And then once it's board approved, we'll be working to publish everything by the beginning of October. So just want to make that clear before I go into the rest of this. So what we are looking to do for the 2022-2023 season is we are going to be condensing down no matter what from 5 levels down to 4 levels. Now, this may come as a shock, and I'm going to kind of explain a little bit of the logic and the reasoning behind that. So what we learned at 2022 Nationals is that from both an organizational perspective and from a membership perspective, having 5 levels isn't currently sustainable. From an organization perspective, we just don't have enough volunteers to be able to functionally run it. Every time we add another level, it adds more work in terms of calculating, making level session assignments, making team assignments, calculating finals qualification, calculating awards, sorting and giving out awards. All of that adds more volunteer hour time, and we're just not at a point where we have the volunteer capacity to be able to do that. And then from a membership perspective, because we diversified and we are at a point where we have fewer people currently registered or were registered at 2022 Nationals than in 2019. So we haven't fully bounced back because of COVID. And that resulted in very small levels and very small awards categories. And one of the biggest things we got as far as feedback from the national surveys was that in general, especially for the lower levels and for the community category, awards were just too small. There were maybe only a handful of people competing in a level or division, and that just led to less competition and people not feeling satisfied with the levels that they were really competing in. And so we've kind of decided that somewhere we need to condense down to 4 levels. And so to facilitate that best and make sure that we keep as small of gaps between the levels as possible, we are actually looking to transition closer to Excel levels. So we are likely going to replace developmental with Excel Silver and replace level 6 and 7 with Excel Platinum, and that being kind of where we're condensing a little bit in terms of the levels. As of right now, level 9 is staying the same, and then we are talking about possibly doing either Excel Diamond or level 8, and that's all of those changes are stuff that we'll talk about in the next like 20-ish minutes or so. So in terms of why Excel, in general, Excel follows the goals of NAIGC a lot more closely than the traditional USAG development program. In addition, the Excel requirements tend to offer a little bit more flexibility to allow people to compete skills that they can perform and a level that works for them. Excel is also becoming more popular within the USAG community, and as the group in USAG that is competing Excel continues to get older, they will be coming into like the NAIGC collegiate program. And so we expect that the perceived popularity of Excel within NAIGC is only going to continue to grow over the next few years. We also want to encourage adult gymnastics in addition to the traditional collegiate gymnastics aspect. And the adult gymnastics community generally competes AAU and uses Excel. So with the transition, one of the questions that we got is if we're condensing levels, why skip from silver to platinum and not gold? In general, we want to make sure that we keep the barrier to entry for the lowest levels as low as possible, but we also need something that reasonably transitions from our lowest level to the 8 diamond-ish level as well. And we thought that platinum made that an easier transition than it would be to go from silver to gold and then gold to 8 or diamond. So with that being said, I do want to kind of share a little bit more reasoning behind the exact levels that we chose and how the level requirements kind of change or don't change. So starting with developmental versus silver, those two levels in general for the base requirements are very similar. It didn't start out that way, but as Excel became more popular, we structured developmental to fit closer to Excel Silver. So in terms of the actual special requirements, absolutely nothing is changing as far as that. The only difference is that Excel Silver only requires 5 A's instead of 6, and that as it's written, Excel Silver only allows A's on bars. We are talking about allowing B circling elements, so clear hip, toe circle, or stalder to not handstand would be allowed in silver as we are proposedly making it. So really not a significant change in terms of developmental and silver. And the only changes that are between the levels, we're looking at making some modifications so that people that were competing in developmental would still be eligible to compete in our version of Excel Silver. In terms of beam for developmental, again, the special requirements are exactly the same. The only difference would be technically in developmental, you could have competed B acro. Most people in developmental weren't competing B acro, but technically it was allowed. And that isn't the case for Excel Silver, but we'll still continue to allow B dance. Similar story with floor. The special requirements are mostly the same. There are some small tweaks. And I guess I forgot before I get too far on this, I have a list of links for all of you before I forget to send them like I did the first couple meetings. So first off, this is all the links that I was talking about earlier. And then these are the links for the level requirement information. So you can find, if you click where it says level requirements, you can follow along in this document with me. Anyway, back to the chart. So between developmental and silver, the difference is that Excel Silver requires a leap connection instead of just two dance elements. Again, most people are probably meeting that anyway, but it is slightly different in USAG. And then the acro requirement The first acro requirement requires 1 skill with flight, which developmental didn't, but again, most of the time people are able to complete that, and that the second acro requirement is exactly the same. So with that being said, does anybody have any questions or comments or concerns regarding the potential switch from developmental to Excel Silver? So we are, as far as levels going to finals, that is not something that's currently being decided. Generally, that decision comes out end of November to December-ish. The highest 2 levels would definitely still have finals, and it's up in the air whether or not the middle level or the lowest level in this potential system would have finals. That's still something that's kind of up in the air. I would expect in this scenario that Platinum probably would have finals, but that is not finalized or even really been discussed at this point yet. Any other questions? Okay. So now I'm going to kind of talk about the differences between 6.7 and Platinum and any changes. Oh, I did forget to mention Vault for developmental versus Silver. So the Vault is actually one of the bigger differences in terms of changes. So if you guys are familiar with developmental at all, we had several non-repulsion vaults for developmental. So we had straight jump, squat on, tuck jump onto the table. By going to Excel Silver, we would actually be getting rid of those. But the 2 options for Excel Silver Vault are either a handspring or a half on over a resi turned sideways off the springboard. So it isn't using the vault table itself, but it would be doing the traditional handspring or half on entry over a resi mat or mat stack. Before I move on, any questions since I switched? Okay. So moving on to Platinum versus 6.7. So Vault, so I don't forget about Vault. 6.7 uses essentially the timer vault, so the front handspring, the half on, or the Yurchenko timer to a level surface landing mat or lowered surface landing mat. In Excel Platinum, there is a true vault chart. So you can see the start values listed here. The most notable thing is that the front handspring, the half on timer, and the Yurchenko timer all go down to be valued out of 9.7. And to raise that start value, you would have to twist those vaults up to a full twist, would give you a 10.0 start value. Excuse me. So this is a little bit of a change, but because it's only a 3/10 difference between, let's say, a front handspring and a front handspring full, a clean front handspring is still going to score better in general than not great front handspring half or front handspring full. So while there is a start value gap, it's not so much of a gap that it's hard to overcome that with execution for the most part. For bars, Excel Platinum is mostly close to level 6. The requirements are a little bit different. So instead of, well, for reference, so previously USAG level 6, you had to get a cast to 45 degrees above horizontal. And for level 7, you had to get to a cast to handstand. That has changed in USAG starting this year. They redid all of their levels, which is part of why we're looking very hard into redoing our levels. So now USAG level 6 only requires a cast above horizontal for 6 and to 45 degrees above horizontal for level 7. So comparing that to Platinum, This is the same as the new 6, but it does not have to be a cast. So it could be a clear hip to above horizontal, or it could be a cast, or it could be a giant. All of those count under that skill requirement. There is still a 360 circling skill requirement, but it doesn't have to be a clear circle. So it could be a back hip circle, it could be a front hip circle, but it could still be a clear hip or toe circle or giant. Platinum requires a kip, which most people in 6-7 are doing, and it requires a high bar dismount, but it does not require a salto dismount. So again, it does offer a little bit more flexibility for maybe someone who wasn't comfortable doing a flyaway. There are other options for dismounts that would count in platinum that wouldn't have counted in 6 or 7. In terms of allowed skills and difficulty restrictions, all platinum 6-7 all allow all A's and B's. And if we were to put platinum into place, we would be matching the Excel Platinum specific C's allowed to the level 7 requirements. So that would be difficulty like allowances. So you could do clear hip, stalder circle, or toe circle to handstand, along with those with a half pirouette or just a cast handstand half pirouette, most of which would not have been allowed in Excel Platinum as it is within the USAG system. So as we make a lot of these changes, or potential changes rather, we wanted to make sure to continue to allow people that were competing in that level to still be able to compete in whatever level they were competing in, or compete the routines that they were using in whatever new levels that we create. So for beam, kind of along that same line, Excel Platinum allows A's and B's and an unlimited number of C dance. That is a change for level 7 this year as well. Level 7 will allow any C dance an unlimited number instead of being restricted to 1. And the requirements are quite similar, but not exactly the same. So full turn remains the same. It does require, instead of just an isolated leap or jump to 180 degrees, it does require a connection, but the split element only has to be 120 degrees. And one of the nice things about Excel is that as long as you meet the special requirement angle for the level you're competing in, there's no deductions for not meeting 180 degrees. So if you were to do an 120 degree split jump in USAG 6, you'd be getting 2 to 3/10 of deduction, whereas in Excel Platinum, you'd be getting 0/10 of deduction for the split angle. For Excel Platinum, the acro series requirement is exactly the same as level 6. So it's either a non-flight acro series or a singular flight skill. Obviously, you can go beyond that requirement, but that's the minimum. And then again, like bars, it just requires a dismount. It doesn't have to be a salto dismount. So you could do a round off repulsion where you push off your hands off the end of the beam. Like is sometimes used, or technically you could even do the cartwheel to side handstand dismount as well. And then for floor, again, much like beam, C dance is an unlimited number. Full turn is still required. Dance passage with 2 skills, one of which is a leap, is the same, except again, the split requirement is less. The acro requirements are a little bit harder than 6. But not as restrictive as 7. So of note, level 7 did change some of the pass requirements. You can see those new USAG 7 requirements down here. But so for Excel Platinum, you have to have an acro pass with 2 direct flight elements, one of which has a salto. So you could do like round off back tuck. And then the second acro pass has to have either 2 flight skills. So you could do round off back handspring, or B salto, so you could front pike as that option as well. Does anybody have any questions on 6-7 versus platinum, whether they think one or the other would make more or less sense for their club, kind of thoughts, questions, concerns, etc.? Hearing none. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is differences between Excel Diamond and Level 8. I do want to be transparent in the fact that this is the decision that we're least sure about. So input on if this would affect your club or how you think it would affect. Yes, Platinum would be replacing both 6 and 7. So 6 and 7 in the NAIGC system would no longer exist, and that would just be Excel Platinum. And that's where the condensing to 4 levels would come about.
I'm so sorry. If you don't mind me asking, is this a set in stone like decision, or is this still in debate?
So this is still in discussion a little bit. We're hoping to have things mostly decided at this point, but we are still hearing out clubs and regions. I will say where we are at this point is that silver and platinum is mostly decided, and the biggest question is whether or not 8 versus diamond is the bigger decision. But for the most part, based on the feedback that we've gotten so far and what we've discussed internally, we feel pretty strongly about switching to silver and platinum. But we are open to other feedback and such. Okay.
That's part of the point of this meeting. So, you know, if you don't like those changes, feel free to speak up.
Yes, please. And I do have a survey at the end of this you guys will be able to fill out, and we'll be using a lot of that numerical, because there is some numerical data that we'll get out of that that'll help us decide and see the skew of data one way or another. Okay. So the last thing, I'll try not take up too much more of you guys' time, is, like I said, level 8 versus diamond. The very first tab of this document has a lot more information kind of on the differences between the levels. So in general, level 8 tends to be harder than Excel Diamond. However, Excel Diamond does cater towards a wider range of skills. So the base requirements for Diamond are closer to like level 7-ish, but the ability to compete higher level skills is higher actually in Diamond than it is in level 8. So like I said, here is the vault chart. So you can see most, if not all of the vaults drop from going from Excel Diamond to level 8 would drop start value by about 4 to 0.6. So if you were competing level 8, and now if we were to transition to Diamond, your start value would generally go up by about 4 to 0.6 doing the same vault. So you can see that's where level 8 is a little bit harder. In terms of things across the board, level 8 requires 4A skills and 4B skills, whereas Excel Diamond requires 5 A's and 2 B's. So you have to count 1 fewer skill and 2 fewer B skills, which is often one of the more difficult parts of getting the base requirements for level 8. In terms of difficulty allowances, level 8 for bars, beam, and floor, you are only allowed 1 C element that's considered restricted. So for bars, that would be something like a toe up release from low bar to high bar, or a toe front dismount on bars. All of the circling elements to handstand that we mentioned earlier, those are all allowed, and so don't count towards that 1 skill. A double back off bars also counts as a restricted C. And then for beam and floor, you're allowed 1 C acro and an unlimited number of C dance. Whereas in Excel Diamond, all Cs are allowed, an unlimited number, and up to 1 D skill is allowed. So again, the lower level the base requirements are a little bit lower for Diamond, but you can compete some harder level skills on the upper end. So in terms of the specific requirements for between Diamond versus level 8, so for bars, Excel Diamond, your B skill doesn't need flight or turn, so you don't have to do like a cut catch, or you don't have to do a release or a pirouette, and that there are also options for non-salto dismounts if they are of B value. So again, like I said, for bars, you have to count 2 more Bs and one additional skill, excuse me. So for beam, the acro requirement is actually the same as old level 7. So it's a series in which only one of the skills has to have, well, it's a series. The series does not necessarily have to have flight. Obviously it can. You just have to have a series and a flight skill, and they don't have to be connected. Whereas in level 8, they do have to be connected. Like we mentioned in Platinum with the 120-degree split for both beam and floor, for Excel Diamond, it's 150 degrees. So again, anything greater than 150 degrees would not receive a deduction in terms of split position. The biggest difference in terms of special requirements comes on floor. So again, like we said, level 8 floor requires more Bs and an additional skill. But one thing that is different on floor is that Excel Diamond does require a B turn, and it does require a B salto. So I'm actually going to click over, that's not the right one, to the floor requirements. So we're looking between these 2 columns. So again, like I mentioned, you have to have a B turn on floor. The dance passage remains essentially the same with just the difference in the split requirement. Instead of having to have the direct or indirect connected salto pass, you just have to have 2 different acro passes that each have 2 flight elements. And instead of 3 different saltos, you have to have 2 different saltos, but one of them does have to be a B salto, which is the biggest change. Most level 8 floor routines already meet these changes, but it would be something that if an existing routine didn't have this, that would be something you would either need to add or work towards adding. Like I said, this decision is far less certain than internally than we are talking about with silver or platinum. So if you guys have any thoughts or questions or concerns, I'd really appreciate if you guys have thoughts sharing them.
Speaking for TCU, they said specifically, quote, "We think there is a significant gap between Diamond and level 9, end quote." So it sounds like they're concerned about like there not being a appropriate level if your skill level kind of falls in between 8 and 9. That's what I gather from that comment.
Yes. So what I would say to that, and I know they're not here, but I'd like to address it anyway, is that while if you're looking purely at the base requirements for Platinum versus 9, there does appear to be a pretty significant gap. However, every routine that you could compete in 8 can still be competed in Excel Diamond rather, with the 2 exceptions on floor that I specifically mentioned. So if anything, the skill level at the upper end of 8 you could actually go a little bit higher than the existing 8 requirements and still be well within Excel Diamond, which actually would allow a better transition to level 9. But it has been brought up that generally people that are closer to competing the basic requirements generally score a little bit better because difficulty doesn't necessarily translate in terms of execution. Someone may have a harder routine that's way exceeding the minimums for the level and may not score as well as someone that's cleanly doing the bare minimum. That is something that's being considered, and that is something that we've talked about, but it would be personally finding a balance between meeting the level requirements and doing it cleanly versus wanting to increase your skill level and maybe not doing it quite as cleanly. But there would still be a decent transition point between diamond to level 9. I also want to make it known, I forgot to mention this earlier, but we are talking about getting rid of the composition requirements, so the up to level deductions for both level 8 and 9. So that would account for 5/10 that people may previously have been getting deductions on that would no longer be in 8 or 9 as we would potentially be doing them in the future. Rhythm, artistry, all of that still applies, but in terms of the up to level composition deductions, we're looking at getting rid of those.
Okay, excuse me, real quick. Just to say, I've got a few of my women's team members here
Okay.
who are far more knowledgeable about this than I am, and so they just wanted to voice a few things. So I'm gonna go ahead and let them say.
Yep, no
just so
problem.
just so you know,
Yep.
you can hear a different voice coming from the same name.
Hello, my name is Abby. I am a senior on the A&M team. So kind of back to the disparity between skill level between Diamond and 9. Well, I do see that like even though you would still be allowed to compete those harder routines in Diamond, I think that there would be a lot less motivation to do so since they're not necessarily required, and you could score, you know, a lot better with cleaner, easier skills. And so I think inevitably that would make the transition, if someone wanted to up a level, be a little bit harder between diamonds and level 9. Also, another concern I had was since one Excel level is replacing 2 previous levels, I think that the group of gymnasts in each of these categories would be a lot bigger, and making it a lot more competitive, you know? And so I think, I guess that I'm losing my train of thought. I'm sorry. That girls who maybe were, oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
No problem.
I just think that adding the more competitive aspect to it makes it, while it does, I guess, light a fire under one's behind, if you will. I think that it gives some girls less opportunity to shine, especially in Excel Diamond, where like the skill level can be so widely ranged, if you will, in which like girls who can do clean stuff will do well, but girls who are just under level 9, but can do more difficult skills won't necessarily feel the need to show them off in Diamond, just so they can score better. And I would support keeping level 8
Okay.
in place. I didn't word that really well, but
I understand where you're coming from.
that's
Yeah,
just my personal opinion. But yeah, thank you for listening.
no problem. And I want to reiterate, a lot of these points are things that we have talked about, even if I haven't mentioned them, because there have been a lot of internal discussions regarding all of this as well. We just wanted to solicit feedback from all of you as well to make sure that we're listening to your thoughts and opinions and not just assuming what we think all of you think. Anyone else have, I guess I can stop screen sharing. Anyone else have thoughts or opinions that they'd like to share? Okay, so hearing none, I will let all of you go this evening. I do before I send everyone away, I do have the survey link, and this will get sent out via Andrew as well. That I would like all of you to fill out if possible. Oh, that's why I turned my keyboard off. That'll just help us get a little bit more quantitative as well as a little bit of qualitative data as well. And that way we'll be able to sort through it a little bit more easily, as well as make it accessible to those who may not have been able to be at this meeting. If you guys have any thoughts or questions that come up after this meeting, feel free to reach out. I'll include my email in all of the information that Andrew will send out as well. But we'd be happy to listen. I will say, like I said, this decision is going to be made pretty quickly. We'll have to be putting together our board proposal in the next 3 to 4 days. So if you have any feedback shortly, it would be really appreciated. But otherwise, have a great rest of your night. And again, thanks everyone for being here. We really appreciate it. And we really appreciate being able to get direct feedback from all of you.
Yes, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Yep, of course.
Yes, thank you.
Yep, no
Thank
problem.
you.